So, hello and welcome to Limitless You Talk with me, Katie. And today I'm delighted to be joined by a fellow coach, Ryan McNairn, who is coach in Mission Upgrade, CEO of Mission Upgrade. Can I say it like that? Yeah,
Aye,
go
that
for
makes it sound cool.
Now, me and Ryan have known each other for a couple of years now through the same coaching that we're in, the coaching program that we're in. But before we kind of get into talking all things mental health and just chatting life and stuff like that, who is Ryan McNairn for anyone that doesn't know?
Good question. I think anytime I get asked that, it's a different answer because I feel like as you evolve and change and look at the world a bit differently, you look at yourself differently. But like I was in the military for 10 years, so my automatic response is to always go back to that. Like, oh, I was in the Navy for 10 years, that's who I am. And I've left it for over a year and I'm still trying to shift that identity and get rid of that. But I would say, who is Ryan McNairn? I'm a hardworking person that just wants to help people become better physically and mentally. And most importantly, mentally. Obviously, we're going to be talking about mental health and stuff right now. My background with mental health is that I've I started by raising money for a charity called Men Matter Scotland, who I'm now going through the process of doing the training to volunteer for as well. So that's my kind of background with mental health. Like my dad, I've seen a lot of bad mental health and mental illness through the years. My dad having bipolar, I seen that firsthand, and that kind of scared me in a way. And for me, the reason I joined the fitness industry and the reason that I want to help people with their mental health is because I've felt it myself and I've seen it firsthand. And like bad mental health and mental illness is worse than any leg break or no worse than any physical injury, but I've seen it firsthand. And like my kind of life mission is to try and have as good mental health as I can for myself and also help as many people improve their mental health. Because when your mental health in a good spot, your life is better. And that's it in a nutshell. But aye, that's me. That's who I am. I'm all about helping people. I'm all about just trying to make the world a better place, I suppose, especially for men.
Love that. I think, yeah, the topic I mean in particular, obviously I can understand it a lot from a woman's point of view, but having had many conversations with men, I've learned through, how open they've been. But I
Mhm.
think when we're talking about mental health, like how important, obviously you're trying to take off your uniform as Ryan the military man, if that makes sense, and Ryan the coach and, Ryan the person.
Mhm.
How important has, mental health become for you today? Because obviously not every day is a good day as much as we
Mhm.
want it to be. And like how is it shaped through all the experiences that you've seen, all the struggles when you've been away in the military for such a long period of time away from home? Like how is it shaped who you are today?
I think I feel like every year I learn more about myself. I learn more about how to deal with stuff. And I think that a lot of people struggle with their mental health is because they don't acknowledge it. They don't ever question it. They just think it's normal to feel shit all the time. Or like, I think a lot of people actually don't want to acknowledge how they're really feeling deep inside. Because I had done that for years, man. Like when it came to like being low in confidence, struggling with my mental health, not really having like stuff to work towards, you kind of put it to the back of your mind in a way and you just forget about it. But one thing that's really helped me, and I can't believe I'm actually, because like Ryan a couple of years ago would absolutely slag Ryan who he is now for the stuff he does, but like I can't recommend like journaling more. Like that's been a massive thing for me, writing down your feelings, and especially as a man, you might even be men listening to this and going, "Fuck that, I'm not doing that."
Yeah.
But trust me, when I say it, like I've done a lot of tough, hard stuff through my life, and there is nothing like wrong with journaling, writing down your feelings, because then you actually figure it out. Another thing that, again, that I would probably slag myself for, but like gratitude, expressing gratitude, like every day, I kind of write down what I'm grateful for. And another thing is affirmations. So I don't think I've ever really said this before, but like I have like three affirmations that I say every morning 5 times, and they just really I say that first thing in the morning, and it really helps me. I'm just trying to think off the back of my head what they are. So like basically, the first one is like today is going to be a positive day.
Mm.
The second one is like I'm on the right path and nothing can stop me. And the third one is I have no reason to be stressed. Everything is and will be okay. So I repeat these five in the morning. I can't believe I even said that out loud there, but
I think
uh,
that's powerful saying it out loud, but like
uh,
just the way that you're smiling about it, obviously I can see for people listening, like they can't see, but the way that you said that like your shoulders relaxed, like you know, you're going to later on when you journal later on, is you're going to be grateful for actually saying that out loud. And that's what I've started to do. Like Ross, who's in the same coaching program as us, he stayed at my house a few months ago, and he was writing down all the things that he was grateful for. That I was like, look how much it's like making him relax. Like he was like sitting on my couch dead, and I was like, I'm gonna try. So since July, I've journaled every day, and I've made sure that I've written down like one thing that I'm grateful for, and I've found that some of the things that I've found I've wanted to write down about being grateful for is things that are not like not happened that day. It's
mhm,
things that maybe I couldn't have acknowledged until now. So
mhm,
then, like my affirmations when I wake up every day is obviously me working in the funeral industry as well. Is like I'm alive today. I'm going to make sure that I live today as if it's my last because I know what happens if, you know, tomorrow it was to all end. So I actually think that's like powerful. And I don't know about you, but for me, it helps me look after myself just that little bit more than, as you say, the previous version of you, like the previous version of myself, like, don't be so stupid. That's not happening. I'm not doing any of that. But now, like, I think it comes back to the messages that or like I always say the contentment that I'm trying to give to the previous versions of myself. So I've got like the three stages of the child version of myself, the teenage version of myself, and the adult version. And I
mhm.
feel like it's sort of like tying into that. But how would you say, or like, would you have a message for Ryan 2 years ago that you would love to say to him?
I would just love to say probably like don't worry about what anyone else is saying or thinking. Like do what makes you feel good. Like you could honestly go onto Google, right, and type in like positive things for my mental health, and there's going to be a big list of stuff, and just go, right, I'm going to try these two. The best advice I can give to anyone is like try stuff for yourself. Like if your mates are slagging you about something that's going to improve your mental health, then like I get it. It's a like men are bad for that, to be honest. Men love to take the piss out of anything that's like, or maybe no men in general, but Scottish men definitely like growing up in Scotland, like if you try and do anything against the grain, you get hounded for it all the way through school. Like you, during school, you don't want to stand out because people get bullied and people get hounded, and if you're a bit different. But I think the best advice I would give to my older self is go with your gut and go with what feels right. And if something makes you feel good, fucking double down on it and do more of it. Don't stop it because like journaling, affirmations, all these kind of things, these are the real these are like the real deep work, the work that people don't want to do, the stuff when it's like what you're writing down or what you're thinking in your head is a wee bit scary. You're maybe thinking about past relationships or decisions you've made or stuff that's happened in your life that you don't even want to think about, but you need to allow that in because the more thoughts that you allow in and question and change and articulate, like the more you get to know yourself. And I feel like the more I do these kind of things that I used to slate, the more I get to know who I really am. So that's the best advice I would give is like you don't really know yourself until you actually put the work in to get to know yourself, if that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense.
Yeah. I think is it like the way that you're talking, like obviously I find it very powerful as you as a again the gender thing comes into it, but you as a guy that I've got to really know and some of the others that are in our coaching platform that the amount that we're able to be so open. And yes, I'm finding that more men can be more and more. But why is it so hard for men to sort of say out loud, I'm looking after myself or how hard is it actually for them to work on themselves? Like, what is it? Is it just like the macho thing? Like, what do you think, from your opinion, like, is this stigma with men when it comes to mental health?
Aye, it's a difficult one to be honest. I think a big part of it is ego. A big part of it is wanting to fit in. You think back to thousands of years ago, if you didn't fit in, you died. Like you wouldn't have survived.
Mm.
It's in our hardwired to want to fit in everywhere we go and no really want to bring attention or no want to go against the opinion of others. Like a lot of people are sheep, let's be honest. People just go with what maybe the news says or what their mates say, and they don't really think for themselves. And that's the kind of lowest level of being is just following what others do or say. I think it's definitely an ego thing, and I think it's a low confidence thing because your ego is something that kind of protects you. And then if you've got low self-confidence, you're not confident to really go and do your own thing and make your own decisions and have your own thoughts, then your ego protects you from the fact that you have got low confidence. And as you start to become more confident, start to do things that you maybe wouldn't do, whether that's go to the gym, go and do events, like journal, all these things, it starts to peel back the ego. And then with the ego peeling back, confidence starts to come through. And that ego will always be there for everyone. But the more that you can put ego to the side and allow yourself to become better, then like your life's going to improve because ego is what holds most people back from everything. Like go and do what, like I said earlier, like go and do what feels right for you, what go and do what your gut says. Like I'm sure there's science behind it that your gut with actually like that gut feeling it is a thing. It's no made up.
Mm.
It's like science backed, and if you go with your gut, then you're following the right path, even if it ends in failure or it ends in mistakes or whatever. You're going to learn lessons from it, and it's probably the right direction long term. But I think a lot of people don't go with their gut. They go with maybe how much money you
Hmm.
can make doing something, or like they don't go with how they really feel. They don't go with their heart, I suppose. They go with their head. So I think I would say that the biggest thing that holds men back is definitely ego, because testosterone, when it's high, people act like dickheads. Am I allowed to say that? Sorry.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think you're you're spot on in that. I certainly, in my experience, I've seen that act, and
Hmm.
then you think, wow, if you just calm down, you would be, you would be able to help yourself. And then obviously, seeing people in the funeral industry talk now. I mean, before COVID, for example, like people in the funeral industry, if I mentioned that I had mental health, it was almost like they would look at you, or they would, kind of like as if I was a bad smell, as if I like hadn't washed in such a long time. But now the conversation is different. So it's like something has changed. That egos had to drop because we all experienced something similar through COVID, for example. And it's like obviously now you becoming a volunteer with a charity now and doing it differently. Do you feel that having that experience and getting more involved, there is a difference in that ego? There's been a drop.
I definitely like you can see all the charities out there. And I think it's came about as a necessity because I think people are getting really fed up with their mates and their family dying and killing themselves, and that's the reality of it. Is that people are killing themselves every single day in Scotland, and I'm sure it's like one of the worst rates in the world for suicide. And
Yeah.
I think it's got to a point where people are like, this can't keep going on like this. Like that, that's something needs to change. And obviously, the drug culture in Scotland is highly linked with that. Like we've got like the highest suicide rate and some of the highest drug deaths in the world, and that's no two things that they two things run alongside each other. And I think people are starting to really wake up and they're like, we need change. Because I've had mates that have died from drug deaths. I know guys that have killed themselves, and normally the two are linked. I don't really know of people that have killed themselves that haven't been involved with drugs in some sort of way. Now, obviously there
Mm.
is people out there, but I'm just saying, like from where I'm standing, the two go hand in hand, and I've felt it myself through years of abusing drugs, and like your mental health is at the lowest it can be. Uh, and I think the two of them, we need to put more effort into helping people with both of them because people are struggling with addiction, and I don't like the word junkie anymore. I used to use that word all the time, junkie, but it's just I don't look at it like that anymore, which is I suppose it's probably changed due to like helping out with mental health
Yep.
charities and seeing the people that actually need the help. They're no junkies, they're just addicts that need help. They don't want to be like that. They want to go on a positive path, and life pulls us down sometimes. Now, obviously, as you're growing up, you've got decisions to make, and you can't blame everything on addiction or leading to addiction. But if you strip it down, it's normally people that have been struggling with mental health, people that have been abused as kids, people that have had a shit upbringing for a single parent background, or maybe their parents never loved them, or they got bullied when they were at school. Like the list goes on, man. And it all leads, it starts from trauma, which leads to poor mental health, which leads to drug addiction, which ends up eventually potentially leading to suicide. And it's all
Yeah.
interlinked, and it's scary. And I think people are really starting to wake up now in Scotland. I think that Scottish bravado of like, oh, we are boozers, we take a lot of drugs. They're like, we need to stop doing this because our brothers are all dying.
You know, it's sitting there, we were talking about that is I'm nodding my head constantly because obviously I've seen a lot. I have dealt with numerous families in all of those regards through my 10 years full time doing it. And you know what I've noticed as well? It's as well as I want to say normal, but I don't mean it in that way. I mean, you know, it's people that have had good jobs. You know, they've got a family, they've got wife and kids, or you know, they've got nieces and nephews at the door. They've got a lovely home. They've got a nice cut. You know, they've got material things and things like that. But deep down, their escape has been either drugs to numb how they're feeling, but then their only way to escape it completely is to end their life. And it's more men than women, hands down. In my experience, it's more men than women. It tends to be. It kind of varies in times of year. It used to be very much they would get through Christmas, get through New Year, and as January went on, when as we say, January is a really rubbish month for everyone. We come into the February time, and that would be it. It's as if they wanted to spend the festive time with family, like saying goodbye is kind of
Right.
behind it. So weird. And then coming to this time of year, you know, they can't wait any longer to go to the festivities. They want it ended before. So it's amazing how then families realise different bits about those individuals and about the men in their life that they thought they knew, or some had tried to reach out but felt as if they were failing. You know, that ego, that stigma, they were feeling like a failure, they were seeing it as a sign of weakness. So it all ties in. And I think it's like if anyone's listening to this, it's so powerful just to like just speak to somebody. Like no one's going to judge you. You just need to say, do you know what? I don't feel okay today. It doesn't mean to say that tomorrow's going to be a bad day, but you just don't feel okay. And who knows where that might lead? As you say, there's so many charities, and we are raising the awareness. Obviously, Scottish government, that's a different level. I would love to get in there and be like, right, listen, this is what we need for the people of the country to make it better, and the people that we can help. You know, there is a lot of helping things out there. Like you being in the military, was mental health ever something spoke about? Like I'm really intrigued in it, or was it because it was I think of the military as a man's world
Hmm.
traditionally, and like you've got to be macho, kind of like what I was saying earlier on. Like, is it very much that?
I've definitely seen it change over the years. I don't actually remember mental health being spoke about much, but I did deal with a couple of people trying to self-harm
Well,
through the years. Normally it was alcohol related, to be honest, but when you think about it, you've been away from home for 5 months. Some people will do anything to get home, or normally it wasn't people try to commit suicide. It was like a cry for help. It was like, I need off of here. But like boys that have tried to cut their wrists, and I would be on watch. So I would be watching over them sleep to make sure that they didn't do themselves any more harm. So there was stuff like that, but normally they would just be sent home. But the thing is with mental health in the Navy, right, it's difficult because people that are genuinely struggling, so like in the Navy, it's called a biff, right? A biff is like someone that's downgraded, someone that can't do their job. So the issue with the Navy is that a lot of people plead mental health issues to maybe get off a ship or maybe not go on a deployment. And then you've got the other half that are genuinely struggling. And for me, it was always, you were always seen as a bit of, you were seen like as a bit weak if you did go to the bish. So the bish is like the bishop. So
Mm-hmm.
you could either go to the doctors and get downgraded with mental health, or you could go straight to the bish and
Wow.
you get you off, and they've got more power than the doctors. So I like nearer my end, the end when I was leaving. So I was always proud of the fact that I'd never been downgraded medically. And that was a bit of an ego thing, even though I'd been close to mental breakdowns because like one of my chefs above me got sent home and we were on Bahrain and I got locally promoted even though I never really knew what I was doing and
Mm-hmm.
I had any other chefs. I had two divers helping me out and I wasn't
Wow.
responsible for the department. I was only 21 and I felt myself like that's probably the first time I've felt like mental breakdown or close
Mm-hmm.
to it. But I was like, right, I just need to get through this and I'm going to get promoted out of it. And I got through the deployment, I got promoted at the end of it. But that was like a real, like, I could feel myself like about to break type of thing. But I never. And then as that was like 6 years later, I eventually did get medically downgraded because I was leaving the Navy. I was going through my leaving process, which is a year's notice, by the way.
Wow.
It's a long time. So I was going through that. My uncle died, and then a few months later, my grandma died, and then I joined a new ship. And when I joined the ship, the place was a mess. Like they just didn't care about the handover because you basically swap crews on the smaller
Mm-hmm.
ships. So we would go on and we'd take the ship, and it was a mess. And I was just like, I was like, I've had enough of this. I'm not putting myself through this stress. So I got medically downgraded. I got took off the ship and then I got put into like kind of downgrade thing and like the feelings I had were I was felt guilty and I felt ashamed that I'd had to get myself medically downgraded. But then after a week or two, I was like, look, this is me looking after myself,
Yeah.
which was my priority. Like I put the Navy first a lot of times, but I was leaving now. I was like, I don't care. I need to put myself first because I'm going to end. I basically preempted a mental breakdown rather than waiting till it happened.
Yeah.
The decision, but I mental health was it's a tough one in the Navy because you're seen as like a bit of a biff if you go and get yourself downgraded. But the only reason is because a lot of people just pretend. So
Mm-hmm.
it takes away from people that are really struggling, which I suppose it's probably the same in the general workforce in the country. You'll have people that just can't.
Nowadays, yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Nowadays, absolutely. And see, like when you're talking about that, like I wrote down about everything you've been through. How proud are you of yourself? But I'm going to rephrase that because you know how proud of yourself are you about actually putting yourself first? You've just said to me about putting the Navy first a lot of times, but do you feel that's like a huge lesson that you learned of actually putting yourself first?
I massively. I think when that happened, I realised that like well done for putting your mental health first because a lot of people say that they do it but they don't. And don't get me wrong, I've been guilty. Like sometimes I work too much, sometimes I do put other people first, but majority of the time it's like right, what is going to help me today? Like prioritize. If I've had a lot going on, then I'll prioritize chilling out over catching up with someone else just because I might feel guilty that I've not seen them in a while. Like I've
Mm-hmm.
kind of got rid of that mentality because that really holds a lot of people back. The feeling of letting people down. Like you're not letting people down. You're an adult at the end of the day, and you've got a lot going on, and prioritizing your own mental well-being before letting someone down to go for a coffee. Like fucking choose the priority. And
Love that.
I'm not saying be selfish. Obviously, you need to divide up your time and see other people and keep relationships going. But at the end of the day, if you're not at your best self, then you can't be the best friend or the best partner, the best father, the best niece, nephew, whatever you are. I think like the more that you look after yourself, the people round about you feel that as well. They feel it off you, they feel the energy off you, and then they start to go, right, maybe I should do a bit more for myself. Because me and Gemma used to both be people pleasers and never know, and our lives have only get better from it, and that's the reality. But I definitely am proud of kind of taking that leap and going, right, I can't do this and putting myself first. Because like I said, there was the times before where like I was putting promotion above my own mental health. But
Yeah.
I was only 21. I seen it as an opportunity and it did really help me going forward. But if I was to go back again, I would probably just say, look, I'm happy to do this job, but just like I would just tell my superiors, like, look, clearly I don't really know what I'm doing. Like, I hope you know that. I need your support rather than the whole manly thing or what most people do is they just get on me until they get to a point where they literally explode and they can't go anymore, where they end up ill, they end up with a mental breakdown. And I think one thing, if anyone's listening to this, if they can take away from it, like don't allow yourself, try your best not to allow yourself to get burnt out or have a breakdown. Like try your best to preempt it and go, right, I need like the weekend there, I was away camp, I turned my phone off for 48 hours. If I'd never done that, I'd have spent more time on my phone and I'd probably be more stressed this week than I would
Mhm.
be because I had a stressful couple of weeks. And as you grow and as you get older and more mature, you start to figure out what you need in that time because we can't just keep banging our head against the wall and keep pushing harder and harder until we break because it's no nice. Like it's no nice to feel broken. And the best advice I can give is if you really feel like you need some time off, then take it. Fuck the job or other people. Put yourself first.
I wish I'd heard that a few years ago before my breakdown and could have preempted it. I really could. And everyone that's came on the podcast, Ryan, I heard this question, I kind of rephrased it. But what do you think are your superpowers?
Hmm. Good question. I think for me, my superpower is my mental resilience. Like the amount of situations I've dealt with over the years from being away in the military, like I said, having a mental breakdown there, running the West Highland Way, starting my own fitness business, and then going and traveling Asia 6 months after it. One thing I've really noticed, and don't get me wrong, there's been a couple of like mental breakdowns in there, but that's lessons that I've learned from, and I think one thing that I'm really good at, and I would say is my superpower, is how mentally resilient I am. And I think that's just came from years of probably doing stuff I don't want to do,
Yeah,
not doing stuff that I don't really want to do, but I'll do it anyway.
love that. I think that's, yeah, for me, I would say there's a lot in that, and it's, again, as you say, like every mini breakdown, as I call them, is only an experience you learn from. It's
Hmm.
never like a step back. I think if you think that, you become a victim
Hmm.
rather than keep on going. But Ryan, thank you so much. I hope that many people can take away from this conversation just like I have selfishly, but that's not a bad thing. That's why we're here. And yeah, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been fantastic.
Aye, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.